From the research bench to the patient's bedside, this is Bench to Bedside with your host, Vice Chancellor and Director of the University of Kansas Cancer Center, Dr. Roy Jensen.
Mike Reese knew he made the right decision coming to the University of Kansas Cancer Center. The 60-year-old Topeka area man came for a second opinion on his advanced prostate cancer diagnosis. After confirming the diagnosis, our urologic oncology team wasted no time. Mike had a prostatectomy to completely remove his prostate, followed by androgen deprivation therapy to reduce his testosterone production. But once he was completely healed, Mike still had a long road ahead of him. He needed daily radiation treatment. Until now, that would have meant Mike would have had to make a 3-hour drive, 5 days a week, to and from Kansas City, on top of the time he would spend in treatment while here. Luckily, there is now a much better option for patients in the Topeka area. Mike was able to have his 6.5-week course of radiation just minutes from his home. It was possible because the University of Kansas Cancer Center, in partnership with the University of Kansas Health System St. Francis campus, has expanded access to the most advanced cancer care to people across Northeast Kansas. This means if you or someone you love is living with cancer in Topeka or the surrounding communities, you now have greater access to clinical trials and life-saving technology and care. The University of Kansas Cancer Center is one of 71 National Cancer Institute designated cancer centers in the country. Hi, I'm Dr. Roy Jensen, Vice Chancellor and Director of the University of Kansas Cancer Center. Today, we're talking about how this exciting oncology program partnership with the St. Francis campus will change and save lives. And joining us is Mike Reese, Dr. Shalana Gupta-Burt, a radiation oncologist at our St. Francis campus, along with Dr. Ronald Chen, Chair of Radiation Oncology and Associate Director for Health Equity at the University of Kansas Cancer Center. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Bench to Bedside. So let's start with Dr. Gupta-Burt. This is huge for people in the Topeka area. Can you talk a little more about how this will improve care for people like Mike in the Topeka region?
Thank you, Dr. Jensen. Actually, I'm really excited to have this opportunity to share with everyone the developments here at the St. Francis campus. When somebody learns that they have cancer, this is probably one of the most difficult times of their lives. And what this partnership does, it provides the people of Topeka and the regional area access, right? Access to the latest innovations and developments in diagnosis, in treatment of their particular cancer. Now, having this partnership with an NCI designated cancer center allows us to have choice in the available treatment options. And what do I mean by choice? Well, we all know what standard of care can be, but for some patients, you have to go beyond the standard of care. And to have that choice available to the people of Topeka is immense. Now, added to that, all right, it provides us an opportunity to streamline the approach and get these opinions of whether people have options for clinical trials or the latest and the greatest in terms of innovative technology, right? And it sets as a foundation for all of us here in St. Francis and in the Topeka area to have access, direct access to the expertise in all fields, whether it's our urologists or our specialists in diagnostic technologies or our specialists in systemic care. We have direct access. It's a matter of me just, again, picking up my cell phone and calling them directly. Now, we talk about all of these choices and access and streamlined approach and expertise, but the best part for our patients in Topeka is while they're going through and navigating this process, they're able to stay close to home. And I got to tell you, I think one of the greatest value to any of us is having our friends and family close by, our support system, right? You can't really substitute for that. So I think this partnership provides us that foundation.
Absolutely. Mike, can you talk a bit about how your prostate cancer was detected and how you chose the University of Kansas Cancer Center for a second opinion?
Certainly. Back in January of this year, 2021, I was going in for my annual checkup. I'm a pilot, and so it's very important that I stay on top of my physicals and things along that so I can retain my license. And my primary care physician found a concerning nodule when he was performing my physical and suggested I go see a urologist. And at that point, I'm a guy. I figured, okay, is it really something I need to do right away? And he insisted. So I went to my urologist, and he confirmed. He says, yes, there's something there, and we need to look at it a little further. I'm going to bring you back for a biopsy. They gave me a biopsy a couple of weeks later, and then they suggested, hey, you need to go talk to a surgeon. We've got some issues here that you need to deal with sooner rather than later. So I was very fortunate. They found it early. I didn't even know I had an issue or anything going on down there because I wasn't feeling any effects of it. But we got it early, and that's kind of how I found out about it. And then from there, there were numerous steps in between where I'm at now versus where I was then. And along the way, I had a great support staff, and they helped me make some of the right decisions that I did.
That's great. So, Mike, we want to start talking about your radiation therapy. And of course, daily radiation can be an exhausting process. And obviously, it's a long drive from where you live outside of Topeka into Kansas City. So it must have been come as a great relief to be able to receive that radiation close to home at the St. Francis campus.
Oh, it certainly was. I mean, to me, I don't want to use the word deal breaker, but knowing I could go local, stay local, and I had support staff here at the KU St. Francis campus made all the difference in the world. I feel certain that it not only helped in the process of taking care of my cancer and getting me where I'm at now, but it also helped in my attitude. A 3-hour drive on each day on top of the fatigue associated with not only the radiation therapy, but the ADT therapy that I was going through at the same time. Those things all add up, and there's a cumulative effect. And so when I visited with Dr. Chin at KU, we were talking about my ADT therapy and where I was going to be doing my radiation therapy. And I asked if it was possible for him to reach out to the KU Topeka campus at St. Francis. And he looked into it and got it all set up for me and introduced me to Dr. Burt at that time. And the rest was history. But yeah, it certainly makes a lot easier because there's days when you just don't even feel like getting in the car and driving, let alone all the way to Kansas City and all the way back. And when you consider the downtime away from work, family, your support system, it all adds up, especially over a 6 to 8 week period of time. So I was very fortunate. I was glad they were able to do that for me.
Absolutely. So speaking of Dr. Chin, he's joining us in the studio this morning. Can you explain your role in this collaboration and why it's so important for the KU Cancer Center to support the oncology program on the St. Francis campus?
Great. Thank you for the question. So I think one of the things that's really important to emphasize is that the KU Cancer Center is a National Cancer Institute designated cancer center, one of the only 71 in the country. And as such, we have an obligation, being the only one in the state of Kansas, to take care of cancer patients throughout the state of Kansas. And so we do many things to try to take care of patients throughout the state. Now, of course, we are located here in Kansas City, which is in the eastern border of the state, but we look at many opportunities to try to increase cancer care throughout by setting up clinical trials, by educating the staff throughout the state related to cancer, by providing screening. But in St. Francis, which is Topeka, and something that's actually close to Kansas City, we actually can do much more. And so the collaboration between KU and our St. Francis campus is incredibly important. And what we're able to do there is we have our KU physicians go to St. Francis and practice. We're able to set up technology there. We're able to actually offer clinical trials there. and therefore directly be able to help cancer patients in the Topeka area. The other thing to emphasize is that I'm from Topeka, and so being able to collaborate with St. Francis and be able to personally help develop a cancer program at St. Francis is of personal importance to me because my family still lives in Topeka. The teachers that I had in middle school and high school are still in Topeka. So being able to provide the best cancer care that's available anywhere in the country, but to be able to have them access in Topeka is really important to me as well.
Dr. Gupta, Bert, we have made a concerted effort to really bring the latest technology to the St. Francis campus. Can you talk a little bit more about those changes, not only in terms of equipment, but also members of the Cancer Center?
Definitely. I think the technological advances in oncology have been phenomenal over the last 2 to 3 decades. I have seen progress in radiation oncology that is way beyond my imagination. I am able to deliver treatments using radiation today that would have been considered impossible just a few years ago. And probably one of the greatest strengths of this partnership is the commitment by both the senior leadership here at the St. Francis campus, as well as our University of Kansas Cancer Center, to bringing that technology closer to home, to the people of Topeka. We just recently installed and commissioned and have started treating patients on our Tubing machine, which is the latest and the greatest. And this machine actually allows us to deliver high doses of radiation with a great deal of precision. And why is that important? Well, to bring a little bit of the bench to of being able to do this precision type of treatment is it allows us to give high doses of radiation over a shorter period of time. So think about our patients that are driving 1 hour, 2 hours, sometimes even longer. To be able to deliver that kind of radiation in a short course of treatment would be ideal for our rural patients. The technology of doing this technique is called stereotactic body radiation treatment, or SBRT for short. And again, it's very high doses of radiation given conformally to the exact area where we want to treat. And this requires not only the state-of-the-art equipment for the treatment, but also a state-of-the-art equipment for diagnosis and for positioning. And not only did we just recently install and start using our tubing, but we just installed the latest in PET technology for cancer diagnosis. And we use this machine in radiation treatments as well. And I think this is just the beginning. I think we'll be getting more of this innovative technology in order to allow us to deliver all the, again, choices and options for treatment. But in addition to the excitement of the new technology, the other really exciting part, which I'm thrilled about, is the addition to our staff. We have recently added 3 new oncologists to our cancer center. I now have a partner, Dr. Kristen Elledge, who hails to us from Johns Hopkins University, phenomenally trained, but best of all, great personality and a commitment. Her primary commitment is to patients, which we're selecting the type of oncologist that is able to practice in this community setting and deliver the type of care with innovative technology in addition to that compassionate care. Now, our medical oncology team, again, phenomenal. Dr. Carcione is our senior medical oncologist, and year after year, he has been deemed to be the best of the best. And recently joining him are Dr. Osama Diab, a KU fellow trained, which is fantastic. Why? Because he already knows the advantages of the NCI designated cancer. He knows all of the attendings in medical oncology and the radiation oncologist. He's used to putting patients on clinical trials, so he has a commitment to putting patients on clinical trials. And in addition to Dr. Diab, we have Dr. Manny Lacala, who comes to us from the University of Rochester. I had the opportunity to work with him just for a few weeks, but already I know he's going to be phenomenal. He's already demonstrated a strong commitment to innovative care as well as clinical trials. And he's already met with many of the oncologists personally, one-on-one, met with many of the oncologists over at the Med Center in Kansas City. So again, we've got people from all over the country coming into practice in Topeka in a community hospital setting, but what they're bringing with them is this experience from elsewhere, in addition to pulling the innovative ideas and technologies from our NCI designated cancer center. So very exciting time right now.
That's really great news for the people of Topeka. If you're just joining us, I'm speaking with prostate cancer survivor Mike Reese of Topeka, Dr. Ronald Chen, Chair of Radiation Oncology and Associate Director for Health Equity at the University of Kansas Cancer Center, and Dr. Shalana Gupta-Burt, a radiation oncologist on our St. Francis campus. Let's check in with Alexis Del Cid if we have any community questions.
We're getting some good ones, doctors, some very good questions. The first one, I've actually heard this before too, comes from Jim. And Jim writes, I've heard prostate cancer is the best kind of cancer to get, if you can say it that way, because of its survival rate. Is that true? That is something that I've heard before too as well.
I'll let you handle that,
Dr.
Dr.
Chen.
Chen.
I will take that, and other people please jump in. I think one of the reasons prostate cancer is often a very highly curable disease is because of screening. We have a good screening tool for prostate cancer, that's the PSA test. And if people undergo screening like it's recommended, then we can catch prostate cancer often at an early stage. And when it's caught at an early stage, we have some really good treatment options with a very high chance for cure. One of the things, so I think in that sense, prostate cancer could potentially be a good cancer to have if there's any good cancer to have. That's not true for everybody. There are patients who are diagnosed at a more advanced stage. Also, we know that the COVID pandemic has also impacted cancer screening, so there's now a lot of men and women for various screenings, whether it's breast cancer screening or colon cancer screening or prostate cancer screening, that are behind in their screening, and so we need to make sure that we make that up. But with screening and early detection, we have very good treatment options that can cure a lot of patients.
Any more questions?
I do. To piggyback on what Dr. Chen was just explaining, I've got a few that follow those lines. Megan wants to know, if you're getting cancer treatment at St. Francis in Topeka, can you qualify for clinical trials that are offered here at the Cancer Center in Kansas City? Are they the same ones offered in Topeka?
So Dr. Gupta-Burt, why don't you handle that question?
Absolutely. This is probably one of the most exciting parts of our program. And that is access to the clinical trials. And in fact, literally yesterday, we had an hour-long meeting with Dr. LaCalla, myself, and Dr. Doolittle in the administrative staff of the Masonic Cancer Alliance. And so we have multiple avenues to offer clinical trials. One avenue is the Masonic Cancer Alliance, which gives us access to national trials. We also have an umbrella relationship, so that any of the trials that are currently available at the University of Kansas, if we want to have those trials available at St. Francis, it's a matter of just having that infrastructure placed here. Now, let's just say for an example that we have a patient that has a rare cancer, and the only trial that's available is at KU, and it's a highly demanding trial with equipment or processes that we don't necessarily have here. This is the best part, right? It's a streamlined process. For me, all I need to do is pick up the phone and call my partners. Dr. Baranda is a great example, or Dr. Doolittle, or Dr. Chen, and say, hey, you guys have this phase 1 trial available. Can you please see my patient? I think she's a good candidate. And we're the ones that are doing the navigation. We're the ones that are initiating that discussion. So our patients now have an advocate, right? So our goal here is to do exactly what you suggested, is to make sure any clinical trial that's available at KU, or many clinical trials that are available nationally, will be accessible to our patients as well. But streamline the process, navigate that process, so it's not so difficult for our patients.
I think they'll find that very reassuring. Sounds like we have another question.
We do. This is from Marie. Marie says, I have a question for the patient. How does he feel now? Any residual effects?
That's a great question. And we were talking about that right before we went live. And I'm receiving two types of treatment, and I've just finished up with my radiology treatment. That was about a 6-7 week process every day. And so I was really glad when that was over. And there were some side effects. And as the doctors explained, and that was one of the key things about KU, I really liked the way they communicated what was in front of me, what I could expect, what was behind me, and things along this line. They flat told me, they said, hey, Mike, just because you're done with radiation doesn't mean it's an on-off switch. You've got about 10 days to 14 days with which you'll have a cumulative effect of the radiation that we've been working with in your system before you start to get rid of all that and start to feel better. So yeah, I've got some discomfort, but they told me early on that the exercise would be my best friend. And I think we've kind of established, Dr. Burt and I, that the more I do, the more I can do. And so I get out every night. I've increased my exercise levels. I monitor my diet more closely, things along this line, things I should have been doing all along, but now I'm more aware of it. So that helps. There is discomfort with the urination, things along this line. But I'm confident that after time, I will gain back all of the feeling and everything else that was long before I started the radiation treatment. The ADT shots, however, those are more of a long-term, ongoing, everyday effect. There's a lot of fatigue associated with that, hot flashes, things along this line. And at the end of the day, it's nothing you can't deal with, as long as you get it in your head that, this is, what I need to do to be the best I can be. And so if you know going in that you're going to have some discomfort, and you will, I mean, that's just the nature of the game. It's not an insurmountable amount of discomfort. It's something you can deal with on a daily basis and just work your way through it.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Thank you, Alexis.
Thanks for sharing that, Mike. Another question, Alexis?
This is a twofer here. We have one person asking, when should African American men ask their doctors about their prostate cancer risk? And then Marie wants to know, is there any kind of self-check or self-assessment, or is this only caught by a doctor?
I think I will address that. I think the overall questions are about prostate cancer screening. I think for most men, prostate cancer screening can usually start at about age 50. Now, I think as the question implies, for African American men, there's often a higher incidence of prostate cancer, so African American men are more likely to be diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so for African American men, I think beginning at age 45 would be a reasonable thing to pursue. Now, in terms of how prostate cancer screening happens, it mostly happens with a blood test called PSA, and also a digital rectal exam to feel the prostate. And it really takes, I think, a provider who's familiar with what the prostate feels like and if there's any nodules they can feel, because sometimes nodules can be very small. So I think the blood test and a digital rectal exam really should be done in a provider's office.
Well, thank you for all the great questions this morning. And please remember that our doctors enjoy answering your questions in real time. So please keep posting them in the comments below. You can also share the link right now with people you think would like to join in this conversation. And please keep them coming. So Dr. Chen, Dr. Gupta Burt mentioned the fact that St. Francis is affiliated with the Masonic Cancer Alliance. Could you explain a little bit about the significance of that to our patients?
Yes. And this relates to one of the questions I was asked a few minutes ago. The really important concept here is that for many cancer patients, having access to clinical trials sometimes may be access to the latest treatments that's not available to the general public. And sometimes clinical trials could offer the best hope for cure and best outcomes for some patients with certain diagnoses. And so having access to clinical trials is really important. What the KU Cancer Center has done is set up the Masonic Cancer Alliance, which means that we partner with several cancer centers throughout Kansas and also in western Missouri, so then we can, through this network, offer clinical trials to patients to a broader area. the importance of St. Francis being a major partner of the Masonic Cancer Alliance means that patients at St. Francis have access to clinical trials that are available here at KU. So we have clinical trials that are offered by the National Cancer Institute for almost every single cancer you can name. We also have clinical trials that are actually developed by our own physicians and researchers. And through this partnership, not only the KU Cancer Center partnership with St. Francis, but also through the Masonic Cancer Alliance, we are able to offer many trials to patients in Topeka, which I think is really important for cancer care for patients in the area.
So, Dr. Chen, our physicians certainly understand the importance of having access of the St. Francis campus to an NCI-designated cancer center. Can you explain why it is so important to our viewers that a patient have access to an NCI-designated center when they're initially diagnosed with cancer?
Absolutely. So I think everybody knows that cancer really is a very serious diagnosis. When somebody hears a word that they have cancer, they really want to have their doctor be the experts, and they really want to have access to the best treatment possible. And I think that's really the importance of our partnership with the St. Francis campus. It's about the expertise, it's about the technology, it's about the clinical trials, it's about the treatments that we have. And just to speak a little bit about the expertise, in radiation oncology at St. Francis campus, part of KU, we have some incredible national experts who take care of patients at St. Francis. Dr. Gupta, she doesn't talk very much about herself, but Dr. Gupta is one of the very few cancer physicians in the country who is triple boarded in radiation oncology, medical oncology, and palliative care. That means she has a comprehensive training to take care of cancer patients from all perspectives, and she trained at the National Cancer Institute. Another physician, Dr. Elledge, Kristen Elledge in radiation oncology at St. Francis, trained at Johns Hopkins, one of the top cancer centers and medical centers in the country. I also, as the chair of radiation oncology, I go to St. Francis every month to also do procedures and take care of patients. And then we just actually hired a fourth radiation oncologist at St. Francis, somebody who is currently at University of Colorado who will join us in 2022. So we have tremendous expertise. So when the patient is diagnosed with cancer and you want the best expertise, the best experts to be your physicians, St. Francis has that because it's part of KU and it's part of my faculty here at KU. Talking about technology, we have added tremendous technology to St. Francis. The new machine that Dr. Gupta talked about, the TrueBeam, is probably the newest radiation machine in the entire state of Kansas for radiation treatment, and it matches the technology here we have in Kansas City. We had developed a brachytherapy program. We had developed an SBRT program. Those are programs, brachytherapy, SBRT, that are not offered by other cancer centers in the Topeka area. And so being able to offer the best technology is also really important and differentiates us, and the access to clinical trials. So somebody who is seeing at the cancer center at St. Francis, part of KU, they are really getting the quality of care that they would have received here in Kansas City. So it's really important to have patients have access to that and have the right experts take care of them.
So Mike, my understanding is that you did a lot of research on your own after your diagnosis. Can you talk about the lifestyle changes that you made that might help others?
Well, yeah, thank you. You're absolutely right. I did a lot of research because, like so many other people, cancer's a mystery. I didn't know what to expect, what I was looking at, what my outcome would be. And so I had a plethora of questions. And as the more research I did, the more I realized that, look, if I'm having a great support system at the hospital and all of the best doctors in the world was wonderful, but I had to be a good patient as well. I think it was a team effort. I had to be able to step up and say, all right, I've done my part. I know what's expected of me because I asked the doctors, how can I help you help me? And, once again, we go back to diet and exercise, staying hydrated, not overdoing it, things along this line. And those were all things that I changed in my lifestyle. I was always pretty active, but this was kind of a wake-up call that says, Mike, you can do more and you need to do more. From the time that I started, from the time of my initial diagnosis prior to my prostate removal and any of the follow-up treatments, I was weighing in at just about 206. And today I'm happy to say I'm down to 175. And that's a result of the doctors telling me, Mike, get it together. You know, we're going to do our part, you do your part. And so it was a team effort. And that was, like I say, I realized cancer's, it's never good news, but I'm a glass is half full kind of guy. And I said, this is my wake up call, change my life and make it better. And so that's what I did. And it really helped, going back to that original question about side effects and things like that. I cannot help but think that with a positive attitude and an adjustment in your lifestyle, you will reduce those side effects and help promote the healing process in a much better and more rapid fashion. So that was a great question. Thank you for asking.
So, Mike, how important was it to you to be treated at an NCI designated cancer center? What did that mean to you?
I'm glad you brought that up too. I started my process after my biopsy when I was told I have cancer. I started with another hospital, and they were very nice and very informative, but the surgeon right there told me, they said, Mike, your cancer is one, it's aggressive. It's a 9 out of 10 on the Gleasons, and it's stage 4. And where it's at and what we've got to work with is probably at the upper end of what the surgeon, was comfortable with. And so I went home and I thought about it and talked about it with my family. And my girlfriend, been together 30 years, she says, Mike, you need to call KU Med. And I asked her, I said, why? I was concerned about offending the other doctors by going around and asking for second opinion. And she says, well, I've known several people with this affliction, and they've all gone to KU Med. And they pointed me to this one particular surgeon, said he was the best in the game. And I thought, well, you know what? I may only get one shot at this, so I do need to get a second opinion. It just made good sense. And when I went up, and the minute I walked through the door, or actually the minute I called, and they got me right in for a consult with the surgeon up there and the team up there at the KU Med Center in Kansas City. Met with the surgeon, he broke it all down for me. He said, this is what you can expect. Here is what we see is needing to be done, and here's what we propose. And I asked a ton of questions. They spent all the time I needed with them to answer my questions and tell me what I was up against. And I felt like, hey, they're not new to this game. They know what they're doing. And when we talked about the fact that they were one of just a few cancer specialist institutes across the country, I felt like, okay, this is my best shot right here. I owe it to go with these people because they're going to do the best they can to help me beat this. And looking back, that was the best decision I'd made in this whole process.
Well, we certainly appreciate your confidence in us, Mike. Dr. Gupta, Bert, this partnership also brings so many other essential benefits to patients in the Topeka area when it comes to cancer care. Can you tell us a little about some of those additional benefits?
Oh, absolutely. There are many aspects of this partnership that can't be put into tables or charts or spreadsheets. I think one of the simplest is the ease of communication to the various experts in the field. I know all of these. I know Mr. Reese's urologist. I know the radiation oncologist that saw him. There is an ease and flow of information. To me, outside of the distance, there's no difference whether I'm here at St. Francis or I'm over at the Med Center. So it's really an extension of the Med Center, if you ask me, in a community setting, which I think is an advantage for us. But in addition to that ease of communication and being a part of that body of expertise, one of the greatest benefits of being a faculty member at an NCI designated cancer center is a simple high expectation. We have a high expectation of ourselves and our peers to practice the highest quality of care. We're not the ones that just follow the guidelines, which is what everybody does. We also develop the guidelines. We emphasize the need to be even better, to be the best. And that sense of team effort with the input from others, that sense of wanting to be the best is extremely important as a member of the team, as a member of this faculty, right? I'll give you a simple example. In our Department of Radiation Oncology, we have a weekly requirement. Every patient that we are going to provide curative treatment to has to undergo peer review. What does that mean? I have 16 faculty members, my colleagues, who are going to look at what I'm doing, what I want to do, what are my plans, and they will go ahead and challenge me sometimes. They will go ahead and add their input. That discussion of what is the latest, what are we expecting in the future, allows me to practice the highest quality of care. And that is really important to hold that standard, because really it's that you're going to be giving to your patient, correct? You know, how can a patient decide who is the best doctor? Well, you need to make sure that the quality that your oncologist is practicing is at the best. And one way to do that is to understand their involvement or their part in an NCI designated cancer center. Now, on our end here in Topeka, I think one of my strongest roles is to be an advocate for the patients in Topeka and the regional area. You know, I am so fortunate to have a chairman like Dr. Chen. You know, not only is he originally from Topeka and has a strong desire to make this program the best, but he also has trained in one of the best facilities in the country, right? He's a Harvard Medical School graduate. He got his initial faculty success at the University of North Carolina, but during that part, he developed his interest in providing care for patients that are in the rural area, patients that are not having access to care. I mean, that's one of his areas of specialization, right? So if I have a faculty chairman who is interested in improving that, and I'm located in a place like Topeka, I know we're going to get better. I know we're going to make the difficulties for rural patients, transportation issues, healthcare costs for all of our patients. It's going to be a part of our program to improve those components. So these are types of advantages that you can't put in a table or a spreadsheet, but that is what we're going to be able to provide for our patients here in this region.
Very well put. Alexis, it sounds like we have another question.
Yes, I've got a couple more. Shane wants to know, is there any food that increases your risk of prostate cancer, and also if alcohol will increase your risk of prostate cancer? And Denise wants to know if prostate cancer is genetic. So we've got the food and alcohol question and the genetic question.
I think it's me again. And so the question about food and diet, it's a common one that we hear from patients. I think a lot of patients want to know what they can eat and what can avoid to not only reduce prostate cancer, but to reduce cancer in general. What I usually tell patients is, I think there's a lot of research in this area, but I personally believe, based on the research, that reducing red meat and reducing sugar intake would be good for reducing cancer risk. So that's what I tell my patients. Reducing red meat, reducing sugars. We do know that obesity is associated with an increased risk for multiple cancers, both men and women. And so being able to have a healthy lifestyle like Mr. Reese, losing weight, being more healthy, exercise, and reducing obesity can also reduce the risk for cancer for many individuals. The other question is prostate cancer genetic? We do know that prostate cancer often runs in families, and so a lot of men that I see would have a family history, whether it's a brother or a father or an uncle. So we know that a family history of prostate cancer is very common. So it is probably genetic. We don't know a lot of specific genes that are affiliated with prostate cancer at this point. There's a lot of research in that area, but we do know that it runs in families. And therefore, I think for men with a family history of prostate cancer, having that regular screening is so important.
The only thing I would add to that is that a couple of genes that we do know that are associated with hereditary prostate cancer is BRCA1 and BRCA2. So men in families that have germline mutations in those genes, most people think that, well, that's a breast and ovarian cancer issue. Men are also at risk with prostate cancer, but as Dr. Chen said, there may be others, but we're not sure about that. So, Dr. Gupta-Burt, another huge benefit for folks like Mike must be the fact that they no longer have to drive to Kansas City for these types of specialized services, and in fact can get them in their own community. And if I'm not mistaken, Mike, you said that you calculated you probably saved what was it now? How much money did you save by not having to drive?
Based on the turnpike fees and the gas or fuel consumption in my truck, I saved just a bit over $3,000, which goes a long ways towards paying that deductible.
Wow, that is
yeah,
pretty significant. Yeah, absolutely. So let's check in with Alexis again to see do we have any additional community questions?
Well, I wanted to follow up with, first of all, $3,000. That's so much money to save in addition to being able to stay home. That's a lot of money. The question about alcohol consumption and if that can reduce your risk, or is there any amount of alcohol that improves your health? I feel like this is on the news probably every other week. We'll hear a glass of wine is good for you. No amount of alcohol is good for you. Doctors, I would love to hear all three of your expertise on that.
Sure. So alcohol has been shown in a number of studies to be a carcinogen.
Any amount, even the glass of red wine?
So I think that now you're getting to the key question there is whether or not a small amount of alcohol actually has health benefits, particularly in regards to cardiovascular disease. I think in regards to cancer, there's not a lot of question about that. It's any amount of alcohol is not good, and the more alcohol, the worse. Certainly, there's a number of different types of cancer that are clearly associated with the use of alcohol, specifically esophageal, oropharyngeal, pancreatic, and a number of others. But and breast cancer. Many women don't realize that alcohol is a significant risk factor for breast cancer. So. But I think there's still a lot of questions out there about, say a small amount of alcohol and the benefits for cardiovascular disease. Dr. Chen, we'll ask you, and then Dr. Gupta-Burt, we'll get your, we'll have you round things out.
No, I agree. I think I agree with everything that you've said. I tell patients that there is an increased risk of developing cancer with alcohol. I think we all have to make decisions on being moderation, and maybe occasional alcohol is probably okay. That's what I tell my patients.
Dr. Gupta-Burt.
I think the key word is moderation, and I also think it's a multifactorial component, correct? In other words, I think the focus has to be on overall health. So I think looking at factors that influence obesity, correct? Looking at factors such as exercise. How much does a person exercise? Things such as the amount of stress in a person's life. So I think moderation with alcohol is extremely important. The comment that was made about cardiovascular benefit is real. It's genuine. That's been seen, right? But if we're focused just on cancer, right? Cancer development is a multifactorial effect. And so if you want to improve your likelihood of aging well, I think you have to look at the whole picture, the holistic approach. Exercise, moderation in diet, extreme moderation in alcohol, minimizing stress. I think those are the factors you need to look at.
I was once told that all things in moderation, including moderation, but I'm not exactly sure that applies to alcohol.
that.
But anyway, so Dr. Gupta Burt, do you have any parting thoughts for the audience today?
You know, I do. I have to tell you, we've talked quite a bit about our technology and equipment, et cetera. But I got to tell you, what I see here at St. Francis is the best of all worlds. And I'm really excited about the vision that we have. You know, our senior leadership here, Mr. Anderson, Dr. Highland, our CEO and CMO, and the senior leadership at the University of Kansas Cancer Center, and, you know, our chairman, Dr. Jensen, Dr. Chen. You know, the vision that all of you share is impressive. And why am I saying that? Well, because look, I think the people of Topeka and the regional area here are going to have the best of all worlds. I've always believed in the strength of a community hospital. And why? Because look, your community hospital is in your neighborhood. This is the hospital where your family and friends can easily come to. This might be the hospital where your children were born. This might be the hospital that you might have had a broken bone fix when you were a teenager. I mean, this is your community hospital, right? This is where your primary care doctor is. This is where you come to for blood tests, et cetera. Your screening studies are usually done here. And to be able to receive the kind of cancer treatment that we have available at an NCI designated cancer center here in Kansas, I think is phenomenal. So I'm going to have the best of all worlds as a physician, right? I have an amazing support system at the University of Kansas. I have access to the faculty with great expertise, to innovations, to research protocols. I'm going to have access to the proton machine, which is going to be available to patients in the spring of next year, correct? These are all things that I can offer. And yet, I actually know my primary care doctors. I know them by their names. I have their cell phones. I know my specialists. I know my cardiologists. I see the urologists that function here. I saw my radiologist and my pathologist early this morning. I talk with my medical oncologist on a daily basis. And then I look at my particular department, and Mr. Rees, please give me your input. I got to tell you, I have a phenomenal department. The people I work with, this team, are committed to their community. My RTTs, the therapists that treat my patients, our patients, they grew up here. They live in the regional area. Some of them drive a while. They live out in the rural regions, but they're all committed to our patients. Our dosimetrists, our physicists have access to the technology that's available at the med center. And they're phenomenal, and they're committed to being here at a community hospital. I look at our nurses, our receptionists, again, phenomenal people that want to be in a community hospital setting, providing care to the patients here in Topeka. You know, I look at our managers, I look at Jenny Davis, Val Jackson. These are people that are committed to making the best program available for the people of Topeka, because they're here. This is where they grew up. This is their neighborhood. And so I think to have that kind of approach where you're amongst your neighbors and you have access to the latest innovations in oncologic care is phenomenal. And Dr. Jensen, Dr. Chen, I'll tell you right now, you know, I know it's the holiday season that's coming up, and I got to tell you, I'm really thankful for what I have here. I'm thankful for our senior leadership here. I'm thankful for you guys. I'm thankful for the people I work with, and I'm really thankful for our patients, because they're giving us a chance to build something that I think is truly just a vision, but I think we're on our way. Now, I have my holiday wish list. You know, I want more support. I want more equipment. I want more people. And I want to offer more things to our patients. You know, and that's what we're going to get, I think, as time goes on. So keep an eye on us. I think we're going to be awesome.
That's a great message. Thanks so much. Mike, do you have any final thoughts for our audience?
You know, thank you. I couldn't agree. I was just sitting here making a few notes as Dr. Burt was communicating. When you get, let's hope anybody watching doesn't come to a situation where they get the announcement that you have cancer, because so many things, it's overwhelming. It can be so overwhelming as a cancer patient, a current cancer patient. There are so many questions because you realize right off the bat, you don't know what you don't know. So you may not be asking the questions you need to ask, but when you do your research and after you meet the staff and the doctors and everybody else that's there to help you, and you realize, you know what, they're not just pushing me through. They're here to help. My best interest is in their best interest. I mean, Dr. Burt said something about the everybody from the receptionist all the way down to the techs back in the back. Every day for 7 weeks, I was back there with Dan and Amy when they'd stuff me into that machine and shoot me full of radiation. And every day I'd get up with a smile and we'd laugh together. And when I was done with my radiation, I kind of felt like, you know what, I'm actually going to miss these people. Don't let them know that, okay? but they were super. If I had a question, and they would stop everything they're doing, and they would answer my question. My concerns were put at ease, and basically, I really felt like, okay, I am making progress. Whether I am or not, I'm making progress. They're taking me where I need to be. So, I'm not paid to do any of this or talk about this or anything. This is a volunteer effort on my part. But once you compare, and I did compare my options in this region, I chose KU Med Center and the Topeka campus, and I made the right decision. And I'm glad I did. Thanks for having me today.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for being on the show, and we certainly appreciate those kind words that you had.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, I would like to say one thing. I didn't have hair before cancer, so we can't put that on them, okay?
Okay.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
All righty. Very clear. Dr. Chin, would you like to bring us home?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize the coordination of care between Kansas City and Topeka because of our close relationship with St. Francis. I think that what's really important, and Dr. Gupta mentioned this before, is that Dr. Gupta Burt has the backing of the entire radiation oncology department here at KU, and that we have 18 radiation oncologists who are specialized in different cancers, who are national experts in what we do. And so when Dr. Gupta Burt sees a patient and offers treatment, as every other faculty in the department, her plan is reviewed by the 18-member faculty group in radiation oncology. So every patient who gets radiation at St. Francis, they're getting the same quality radiation they would in Kansas City. I think that's really important to emphasize. The other thing important to emphasize, the coordination, is that whenever I see a patient here in Kansas City, if they're from the Topeka area, I simply pick up the phone and call Dr. Gupta Burt, or I call Dr. Elledge, or I email them and I say, hey, this is a patient from Topeka. This is a patient that could be treated at St. Francis. This is our plan for care. And that just happens like it did with Mr. Reese. And so this close relationship, patients can get the same quality of care in Topeka as they would at KU, which I think is really important.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike, Dr. Chin, and Dr. Gupta Burt. That's it for today. To learn more, please visit kutopeka.com/cancer. Join us next time for Bench to Bedside when we discuss disparities in health related to the African American community and tobacco use. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our Bench to Bedside podcast, now everywhere podcasts are available.